The space station was quiet at night. Most of the lights were dim and the hallways were empty, like this time best. She could walk slowly, look at the stars through the big windows, and think about her home far away on Earth. Was 26 years old. She had brown hair that she kept in a ponytail and kind eyes that always seemed to smile. She worked as a caretaker on the station. Her job was simple but important. She looked after the young ones. Not human children, but alien cubs from many different worlds. The station was a diplomatic place. Leaders from different planets came here to talk and make peace. Many of them brought their families, and families meant children. Someone had to watch them, feed them, and keep them safe. That someone was. She had been doing this job for 2 years now. At first she was scared. The aliens looked so different. Some had scales, some had fur, some had too many eyes or too few, but learned quickly that children were children no matter what planet they came from. They all wanted to play. They all got hungry. They all needed someone to care for them. Tonight was tired. She walked to her small room at the end of the hallway. It was not a big room, but it was hers. She had a bed, a small desk, a chair, and a window that showed the stars. That was enough for her. She opened the door and stepped inside. The room was dark. She reached for the light switch but stopped. Something was wrong. She could hear a sound, a very small sound. It came from under her bed. Stood very still, she listened carefully. The sound came again. It was like a tiny roar, then another, and another. 3 small roars, one after the other. Her heart beat faster. What was under her bed? She had heard stories about space creatures that hid in dark places. Small things with sharp teeth, dangerous things. But those were just stories, right? She took a slow breath. She was not a soldier or a fighter. She was just a caretaker. But she was also brave in her own way. She had to be. Her job needed it. Got down on her knees. Slowly, very slowly, she lowered her head to look under the bed. The space was dark. She could not see anything at first. Then her eyes got used to the darkness. What she saw made her stop breathing for a moment. There were 3 small figures under her bed. They were cubs. They were a proud warrior species from a planet called Velar Prime. They were covered in soft golden fur. They had big ears, sharp little teeth, and eyes that glowed in the dark like tiny moons. The 3 cubs were sitting in a circle. Around them were things they had clearly stolen: blankets from the storage room, data pads from the learning center, empty food containers, even some of his own socks. They had built a small den under her bed, a secret hiding place. The cubs saw her looking at them. They froze. Their eyes went wide. For a long moment, nobody moved. Recognized them. The biggest one he was 7 years old in human years. He was the son of a general, was always trying to act brave and strong like his father. Next to him she was 6. She was smaller than, with lighter fur and bigger ears. She was quiet and always watching everything. The smallest one was Ben. He was only 5. He was round and fluffy and always getting into trouble. Knew these 3 well. She had taken care of them many times. They were good cubs, even if they were a little wild sometimes. But what were they doing under her bed? Was the first to speak. His voice was a tiny growl, the way children talked. "Human," he said, "you were not supposed to find us." Did not know what to say. She just looked at them. Under the blankets she could see papers, drawings. One of them showed a picture of a human hand. Another showed a human face with a big smile. There were words written in script. She could not read them, but she could guess what they said. "What is all this?" asked softly. The cubs looked at each other, made a small worried sound. Ben tried to hide behind, but he was too round to hide well. Stood up. He was trying to look brave, but his tail was shaking. That meant he was nervous. "This is our meeting place," said. "Our secret council." "Secret council," repeated. "Yes," said. He lifted his chin, trying to look important. "We are the Council of Cubs. We meet here to discuss." To discuss. He stopped. He looked for help. "Human matters," said quietly. "We discuss human matters." Blinked. "Human matters? What did that mean? She looked at the drawings again. The human hand, the human face, the papers with writing. These cubs had been meeting in secret under her bed to talk about humans, to talk about her kind. She did not know if she should laugh or be worried. It was strange, it was very strange, but it was also interesting. Why asked, why do you want to discuss humans? The three cubs looked at each other again. This time it was little Ben who spoke. His voice was high and squeaky. Because humans are scary, Ben said. Very, very scary. We want to know why. Sat back, she was surprised. Scary. Humans were scary. She was not scary, she took care of children and liked to look at stars. There was nothing scary about her. But then she remembered something. There were warriors. They had fought many battles. They were big and strong and had sharp claws. In their world, strength was everything. And yet, she had seen adults look at humans with something like fear in their eyes. Did not understand it. Humans were soft. They had no claws, no fangs, no scales. They could not run very fast or see very well in the dark. Compared to the humans were weak. But they feared them anyway. And now, these three little cubs had made a secret council to understand why. Looked at the cubs under her bed. They looked back at her with their glowing eyes. They were scared of her, she realized. Even now they were scared. But they were also curious. They wanted to understand. And in that moment made a decision. She would not chase them away. She would not tell their parents. Instead, she would do something different. She would help them understand. Did not move from her spot on the floor. She sat with her legs crossed, looking at the three cubs under her bed. The cubs looked back at her. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Then did something that surprised them. She smiled. "Can I see your council room?" she asked. The cubs looked at each other. Ears went flat against his head. That meant he was confused, tilted her head to one side. Ben just stared with his big round eyes. You want to see it?" asked slowly. "Yes," said, "if you will let me." Thought about this. He was the leader of their little group. He had to make the decision. She gave a tiny nod. He looked at Ben. Ben was already moving to the side to make room. "Okay," said, "you can come in, but you have to be quiet. This is a secret place." Nodded seriously. "I will be quiet," she promised. She got down on her stomach and crawled under the bed. It was a tight fit. She was much bigger than the cubs, but she made it work. Soon, she was inside their little den. It was amazing what they had built. The blankets made walls on three sides. The data pads were stacked to make a small table in the middle. There were cushions on the floor, stolen from the common room. Small lights, taken from somewhere, gave the space a soft glow. On the walls they had stuck their drawings, pictures of humans, pictures of human things. Saw a drawing of a human eating food, a drawing of a human running, a drawing of a human sleeping. The cubs had been watching humans very carefully. "This is incredible," said softly. "You built all this yourselves." Puffed out his chest with pride. "It took us many nights," he said. "We worked very hard." "We had to be very sneaky," added. "Humans sleep deep. They do not hear well at night." Smiled at that. It was true. Humans did sleep deeply. She had never noticed the cubs sneaking around her room. They were good at hiding. So said, "Tell me about your council. What do you do here?" Sat down across from her. He picked up one of the drawings. It showed a human hand like the one had seen before. But this drawing had more detail. It showed the lines on the palm, the short, flat nails, the soft skin. "We study humans," said. "We try to understand them." "Why?" asked. Looked at her for a long moment. Then he spoke and his voice was serious. "Because our parents are scared of them." The words hung in the air. Felt something strange in her chest. They were warriors. They were not supposed to be scared of anything. But here was this little cub telling her that his parents feared humans. "Your parents are scared of humans?" asked carefully. "Not just my parents," said. All the adults, I see it in their eyes. When they look at humans, something changes. They stand different, they speak different, they are careful. Nodded. My mother told me never to make a human angry, she said. She said humans are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. But you do not look dangerous, Bin said. He was looking at with his big eyes. You are soft, you have no claws, you cannot even run fast. Why are the adults scared of you? Did not know what to say. She had never thought about this before. On Earth, humans were just humans, normal, nothing special. But out here in space, among all these alien species, humans were something else. Something strange, something frightening. What have you learned so far? Asked. In your council meetings. Picked up a data pad. On it were notes, written in messy script. He had been keeping records. We have learned many things, said proudly. First, humans do not give up. We watched the human engineers fix the power system last month. They worked for 3 days without stopping. No sleep, no rest. They just kept working until it was done. That is not normal, said. Our people need sleep. All species need sleep. But humans can fight their own bodies. They can refuse to sleep. Nodded slowly. She remembered that week. The power system had failed and the human engineering team had worked around the clock to fix it. They had been exhausted, but they did not stop. It was just what humans did. What else? Asked. Bin raised his small paw. I learned something, he said excitedly. Humans can eat poison. Blinked poison. Yes, Bin said. I saw a human eat the brown drink. The one that smells bitter. My mother said it is poison for us, but the human drank it and smiled. Laughed softly. You mean coffee? Is that what it is called? Bin asked. Coffee, it smelled very bad, but the human loved it. Coffee is not poison for humans, explained. We drink it to help us wake up. It makes us feel more alert. The cub stared at her with wide eyes. You drink poison to wake up? Asked slowly. It is not poison for us, said again. But yes, I suppose it is strange when you think about it. Wrote something on his data pad. Could not read it, but she guessed he was adding this new information to his records. What else have you learned? Asked. Spoke this time. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. We learned that humans smile when they are about to fight. Felt a chill run down her back. She knew what was talking about. Tell me more, she said. 2 weeks ago, said, there was a problem in the meeting hall. A delegate was angry. He shouted at everyone. He said bad things. He was very big and very loud. Remembered this. The delegate had been upset about a trade deal. He had yelled and threatened violence. It was a scary moment. A human stood up, continued. A small human, smaller than they, but the human did not run. The human smiled. Nodded. It was not a happy smile, he said. It was a different kind of smile. Like the human was glad, that was angry. Like the human wanted to fight. The stopped shouting, said. He looked at the human and he sat back down. He was quiet after that. Knew the story. The small human had been Ho, a diplomat from the Korean sector of Earth. Ho was not a fighter. He was a talker. But when they had threatened violence, something in Ho had changed. He had smiled that smile and they had understood something. Some message that needed no words. Why do humans do that? Bin asked. Why do they smile before a fight? It is very scary. Thought about how to explain it. It was not easy. Humans had been fighting for a very long time. On Earth, they had fought each other for thousands of years. They had fought animals. They had fought nature itself. Somewhere along the way, something had changed in them. Humans come from a hard world, said finally. On Earth, we had to fight to survive. We had no claws or fangs. We were not the strongest or the fastest, but we learned to never give up. We learned that sometimes the will to fight is more important than the ability to fight. The cubs listened in silence. Their eyes were wide. When a human smiles before a fight, continued, it means they are ready. It means they are not scared. It means that no matter what happens, they will not stop until the fight is over. Swallowed hard, his tail had stopped shaking. Now it was tucked close to his body. That is why the adults are scared, he said quietly. Humans never give up, even when they should. Nodded, yes, she said, that is part of it. The little den under the bed was very quiet. The cubs looked at with new eyes. She was not just their caretaker anymore. She was something more, something they did not fully understand. But they wanted to understand. That was why they had built this council. That was why they met in secret to study humans. They were young, but they were curious. And curiosity was the first step to wisdom. "Can we ask you more questions?" asked. His voice was small but hopeful. Smiled at him, a real smile, warm and kind. "You can ask me anything," she said. "I will tell you what I know." And so, in the little den under the bed, surrounded by stolen blankets and drawings of human hands, the Council of Cubs held its first meeting with a human member. The questions came fast. Once the cubs knew they could ask, they did not stop. Sat in the little den under her bed, surrounded by 3 pairs of glowing eyes, and she answered every question they had. Asked the first one. She held up a drawing she had made. It showed a human face with a wide smile, but the eyes in the drawing were sad. "Why do humans smile when they are in pain?" asked. "I saw a human fall down last week. She hurt her leg, it was bleeding, but she smiled and said she was fine. Why?" Looked at the drawing. It was a good question, a strange question, but was right. Humans did smile when they were hurt. Did it too. "Humans do not like to show weakness," said slowly. "When we are hurt, we often hide it. We smile to tell others that we are okay, that they should not worry about us." "But why?" asked. "If you are hurt, others should help you. That is what a pack does." "Humans are not always part of a pack," explained. "Sometimes we are alone, and when we are alone, we must be strong by ourselves. We learn to hide our pain so that others do not see us as weak, so that enemies do not see us as easy targets." Wrote this down on his data pad. "Humans hide weakness," he muttered, "even from friends, even when hurt." "It is not always a good thing," admitted. "Sometimes we hide too much. Sometimes we need help but do not ask for it. It is a problem many humans have." Ben raised his paw. "I have a question," he said loudly. His voice echoed in the small space. "Hist, we must be quiet, remember." "Sorry," Ben whispered, but his eyes were still bright with excitement. "My question is about food." "What about food?" asked. "Humans eat everything," Ben said. "I have watched humans in the food hall. They eat meat. They eat plants. They eat things that are still alive. I saw a human eat a small swimming creature. It was still moving. How is that possible?" Laughed softly. She knew what Ben was talking about. He had probably seen someone eating raw fish. Sushi was popular among the human crew. "Humans can eat many things," said. "Our bodies are very good at handling different foods. On Earth, humans live in many different places. Some places have only meat. Some places have only plants. Humans learned to eat whatever was available." "Even poison?" asked. Ben said humans drink poison. "Some things that are poison for other species are not poison for us," said. "Coffee, chocolate, alcohol. These things can hurt other species, but humans can eat them safely. Well, mostly safely. Too much is still bad." Shook her head slowly. "Humans are very strange," she said. "I suppose we are," agreed. The questions continued. Asked why humans had such small eyes. Explained that humans had evolved on a planet with a bright sun, so they did not need to see well in the dark. Asked why humans had no fur. Explained that humans wore clothes to keep warm instead, and that they could survive in many different temperatures. Ben asked the most questions. He wanted to know why humans needed so much water. He wanted to know why humans slept lying down instead of standing up. He wanted to know why human bodies were so helpless for so long. Answered everything. She tried to explain human biology in simple terms. She talked about how humans were born weak but grew stronger over time. She talked about how humans could adapt to almost any environment. She talked about how humans formed bonds with each other, strong bonds that could last a lifetime. The cubs listened to every word. They took notes. They made more drawings. They asked follow-up questions. Their curiosity seemed endless. Then asked a question that made stop. Why do humans care for other species? Looked at her. What do you mean? You take care of us, said. You are human. We are not your species. We are not your pack, but you feed us, you play with us, you make sure we are safe. Why? It was a simple question, but it was also a deep one. Thought about it for a long moment. Humans form bonds easily, she said finally. Not just with other humans, with animals, with aliens, with anyone who needs us. When I look at you three, I do not see cubs. I see children who need care, and I want to give that care. It is just how I am. But we are not your children, said. No, agreed, but that does not matter to me. The cubs were quiet. They seemed to be thinking about this. Ben crawled a little closer too. He looked up at her with his big round eyes. My mother says humans are dangerous, he said softly, but you are not dangerous. You are kind. Humans can be both, said. We can be kind to those we love, and we can be dangerous to those who threaten the ones we love. That is also part of being human. His ears perked up, so if someone tried to hurt us, I would protect you, said. There was no hesitation in her voice. I would do whatever I had to do to keep you safe. The cubs stared at her. Something had changed in their eyes. Before, they had looked at her with curiosity and a little bit of fear. Now there was something else. Trust, maybe, or the beginning of it. Asked another question. How do humans know who to trust? You do not have scent markers like we do. You cannot smell if someone is pack or enemy. How do you know? We watch, said. We listen. We pay attention to actions, not just words. Humans are very good at reading other beings. We notice small things. The way someone stands, the way they speak, the look in their eyes. These things tell us if we can trust them. Can you read us? Asked. Can you tell what we are thinking? Smiled. A little, she said. I know that is trying very hard to be brave like his father. I know that watches everything and forgets nothing. I know that Ben is scared of the dark but pretends he is not. Ben's fur puffed up. I am not scared of the dark, he said quickly. Just smiled at him. How did you know that? Asked. He looked amazed. I told you, said. Humans watch. We pay attention. It is how we survived for so long on Earth. We could not fight like the big animals. We could not run like the fast ones, but we could think. We could plan. We could understand others better than they understood themselves. Wrote something long on his data pad. His paw was moving fast. Could tell he was very excited about this new information. This is why they was scared, said, looking up. The human who smiled at him. The human was reading him. The human knew he was bluffing. The human could see the fear behind the anger. That is possible, said. Humans are very good at seeing through lies. Can all humans do this? Asked. Most can, said. Some are better than others, but we all learn from a young age. Human children play games that teach them to read others. We call it social intelligence. It is something we practice every day. The night went on. The questions kept coming. Answered them all. She talked about human history, about the wars they had fought and the peace they had built. She talked about human art and music and stories. She talked about the way humans loved and grieved and hoped. The cubs listened with wonder. To them, humans had been a mystery, a scary, confusing mystery. But now, piece by piece, the mystery was becoming clearer. Humans were not monsters. They were not demons. They were just different, strange and wonderful and different. When finally looked at the clock, she was surprised. Many hours had passed. It was almost morning. The cubs should have been asleep long ago. It is very late, she said. You three need to sleep. The cubs made unhappy sounds. They did not want to stop. They had more questions, so many more questions. "We can meet again tomorrow night," said. "I promise, I will answer more questions then." Looked at her carefully. "You promise, you will come to our council again?" "I promise," said. The cubs seemed satisfied with this. They gathered their blankets and prepared to leave, but before they crawled out from under the bed, Ben turned back to look at. He said in his small voice, "Yes, Ben. I am glad you found our secret place," he said. "You are a good human." Then he crawled away, leaving alone under the bed, surrounded by drawings of human hands and notes about human nature. She smiled to herself in the darkness. She had expected a quiet night. Instead, she had found a secret council and 3 curious cubs who wanted to understand her species. It was strange. It was unexpected. But somehow it felt right. 3 days had passed since joining the Council of Cubs. Every night after the station went quiet, she would crawl under her bed and meet with and Ben. They would ask questions. She would answer. Slowly, the cubs were learning more about humans than most adults ever knew. But today was different. Today was not night. It was the middle of the day and something bad had happened. Was in the common room when she heard Ben crying. It was a loud, desperate sound. The kind of sound a child makes when something precious has been lost. She ran toward the noise. She found the 3 cubs standing near the storage area. Ben was on the ground, tears streaming down his furry face, and stood beside him, looking helpless. "What happened?" asked, kneeling down next to them. "My toy," Ben wailed. "My special toy, it is gone." Looked around. The storage area was a mess. Large metal crates were stacked in tall piles. Equipment and supplies were everywhere. It was not a place for cubs to play. "What toy?" asked gently. "Tell me what happened." Spoke up, his voice was tight with guilt. "It was my fault," he said. "I told Ben to bring his toy here. I wanted to show him a hiding spot, but then the crate fell and—" He pointed to a massive metal crate that had tipped over. It was lying on its side, blocking a narrow gap between 2 storage shelves. Inside that gap could see something small and colorful. Ben's toy. "It fell in there," said. "We tried to reach it, but the space is too small, and the crate is too heavy to move." Looked at the crate. It was big, really big. It was made of thick metal and was filled with heavy equipment. Moving it would normally require a loading machine. There was one in the station, but it was on the other side of the storage bay. Getting it would take time. Ben cried harder. "I will never get it back," he sobbed. "It was from my grandmother. She gave it to me before she died. It is all I have left of her." His heart hurt. She understood. She had lost her own grandmother years ago. She knew how precious such things could be. She stood up and looked at the crate again. It was very heavy. Too heavy for any to lift alone, too heavy for most species on the station, but was not most species. "Stand back," she said quietly. The cubs looked at her with confusion, but they moved away. They trusted her now. Walked to the fallen crate. She placed her hands on its edge. She took a deep breath, then another. She thought about her training back on Earth, the exercises she had done, the weights she had lifted. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were stronger than many aliens realized. She bent her knees, she tightened her grip, and then she lifted. The crate groaned, metal scraped against metal, muscles burned, her arms shook, but she did not stop. She kept lifting, kept pushing, kept straining against the weight. Slowly, impossibly, the crate began to rise. The cubs watched with their mouths open. Their eyes were huge. They had never seen anything like this. A soft, clawless human was lifting a crate that should have been too heavy for any single being to move. Lifted the crate until there was enough space underneath. Then, with a grunt of effort, she pushed it to the side. It crashed down with a loud boom that echoed through the storage bay. Stood there breathing hard. Her arms felt like they were on fire. Her whole body was shaking. But the gap was open now. The toy was free. Ben ran forward. He grabbed his toy and hugged it to his chest. It was a small, stuffed animal, worn and faded from years of love. He held it like it was the most precious thing in the universe. "You did it," Ben whispered. He looked at with wonder. "You are so strong." Smiled weakly, she was still trying to catch her breath. "I am not that strong," she said. "I just did not give up." Walked closer. He was staring at his arms. They looked normal, soft, no bigger than any other human's arms, but he had just seen what they could do. Hal asked, "How did you lift that? Our strongest warriors could not have done that alone." Sat down on a smaller crate. Her legs were shaking. She needed to rest. "Humans are built for endurance," she said. "We can push our bodies beyond normal limits when we need to. It is called adrenaline. When we are scared or desperate, our bodies release chemicals that make us stronger, faster, harder to stop." "But there was no danger," said. "You were not scared, you were just trying to help Ben." "It works for that too," said. "When we want to protect someone, when we really want something, our bodies respond. It is like our will become strength." The cubs were silent. They looked at each other, then at something had changed in how they saw her. Before she had been kind, gentle, safe. Now they knew there was more to her. There was power hidden under that soft skin. "I have read about this," said slowly. He was remembering something from his data pad. Human soldiers in ancient times, they would fight for days without rest. They would keep fighting even when wounded, even when they should have died. They just kept going. "Yes," said, "that is true." "There is a word for it," continued. "Persistence. Humans have more of it than any other species. You never stop, even when you should. You just never stop." Nodded. She thought about all the times humans had done impossible things, climbed impossible mountains, survived impossible disasters, fought impossible battles. It was not because humans were the strongest it was because they refused to quit. "That is what makes us dangerous," said honestly. "Not our strength, not our speed, our will. When a human decides to do something, they will keep trying until they succeed or die. There is no middle ground." Ben clutched his toy. He was looking at with something close to awe. "My mother was right," he said softly. "Humans are scary." "But you are not scary to us," added quickly. "You are our friend. You lifted that crate for Ben. You helped us. That is not scary. That is wonderful." Smiled at them. Her arms were still aching, but she did not care. The look on their faces was worth the pain. Was writing on his data pad again. His paw moved faster than ever. "New observation," he muttered. "Humans can access emergency strength for emotional reasons, not just survival. They will push beyond limits to protect others. This makes them unpredictable. This makes them." He stopped. He looked up at. "This makes them the best allies," he said, "and the worst enemies." "That is a good observation," said. The sound of footsteps made them all turn. An adult was approaching. It was General's father. He was tall and muscular, with dark golden fur and sharp eyes. He was one of the most respected warriors on the station. He stopped when he saw the scene, the fallen crate, the cubs huddled around, his son writing on a data pad. "What happened here?" the general asked. His voice was deep and commanding. Spoke up immediately. "There was an accident," he said. "Ben's toy got trapped, helped us get it back." The general looked at the crate. He walked over to it. He tried to lift it with one arm. It did not move. He tried with both arms. It barely shifted. He looked at with new eyes. "You moved this?" he asked. "Yes, sir," said. She stood up, trying to ignore her shaking legs. The general was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He bowed his head slightly. It was a gesture of respect a warrior's acknowledgement of another warrior. "Thank you," he said, "for helping my son and his friends." "It was nothing," said. "It was not nothing," the general replied. "I know how heavy that crate is. What you did should not have been possible." He looked at her for another moment. There was something in his eyes, not fear exactly, something closer to understanding. "I think I know why my elders told us to be careful with humans," he said quietly. "It is not because you are strong. It is because you care, and that caring gives you strength that cannot be measured." He nodded to once more, then called for his son. The 3 cubs had to leave. They had lessons to attend. But before they went, each of them hugged quickly. Ben hugged her the longest, his toy pressed between them. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Then they were gone, following the general down the corridor. Watched them go. Her arms hurt, her back hurt, everything hurt. But she was smiling. She had shown the cubs something important today. Not just that humans were strong, but that human strength came from love, from caring, from the simple wish to protect those who needed protecting. That was the real power of humans. And now, 3 little cubs understood it just a little bit better. Word spread quickly on the station. Stories always did when children were involved. The tale of the human woman who lifted a massive crate to save a cub's toy traveled from whisper to whisper, from corridor to corridor, until everyone had heard it. But that was not the only story spreading. There was another one, a secret one. It moved through the children of the station like fire through dry grass. The story of the Council of Cubs. Had tried to keep it secret. He really had. But he was young, and young ones love to share exciting things. He told one friend. That friend told another. And soon, everyone under the age of 10 knew about the secret meetings under his bed. 1 week after the crate incident, crawled under her bed for the nightly meeting. She expected to find 3 cubs waiting for her. Instead, she found 12. The den had grown. Someone had brought more blankets, more lights. The space under the bed now stretched into a tunnel that led to a bigger area behind the bed frame. The cubs had been busy. Stared at all the faces looking at her. There were cubs, of course, and Ben sat at the front like proud founders, but behind them were others. 2 small younglings with bright blue scales, a fluffy cub with 6 eyes and soft purple fur, 3 young with their signature spotted skin, and 4 tiny, no bigger than's hand, who hovered in the air on delicate wings. "What is all this?" asked. Stood up proudly. "The council has grown," he announced. Word spread about our meetings. Everyone wanted to join. Everyone wanted to learn about humans. We could not say no, added. They were so curious. Ben nodded eagerly. "Now we have members from 7 different species," he said. "We are a real council now." Did not know what to say. She looked at all the young faces watching her. They were all so different, different colors, different shapes, different sizes, but they all had the same look in their eyes, curiosity, hope, a desire to understand. One of the younglings spoke up. His voice was high and hissing. "Is it true that humans can survive in frozen water?" he asked. "Is it true that humans keep animals as friends?" asked a. "Is it true that humans can cry water from their eyes?" asked the cub. The questions came from everywhere, held up her hands. "One at a time," she said, laughing. "One at a time." And so the meeting began. Sat in the center of the expanded den, surrounded by children from across the galaxy. She answered their questions as best she could. She told them about Earth, about snow and rain and oceans, about dogs and cats and the strange bond humans formed with animals, about tears and laughter and all the ways humans express their feelings. The cubs listened with wonder. They made notes. They drew pictures. They whispered to each other in amazement. To them, humans were no longer just the scary species their parents warned them about. Humans were fascinating, complex, full of surprises. When the meeting ended that night, something had changed. The children did not just leave. They gathered together first, stood at the front looking important. "I have an announcement," he said. "The Council of Cubs has voted. We have a new rule." "What rule?" asked. "From now on," said seriously, "is not just our guest speaker. She is our honorary member, the first human member of the Council of Cubs." The other children cheered, some clapped, they did little flips in the air, even was smiling. Felt warmth spread through her chest. She had not expected this. She had not expected any of this. A week ago, she was just a caretaker. Now she was a member of a secret council of alien children. "I am honored," she said, and she meant it. The weeks that followed were some of the best of life. The council met regularly. More cubs joined. At its peak, there were over 30 young ones from 12 different species, all crowded into the secret den under's bed. They did not just talk about humans anymore. The meetings became something bigger. Children from different species shared stories about their own worlds. They learned about each other. They asked questions. They discovered that despite all their differences, they had much in common. Watched it happen with pride. These children, who had been raised to fear or mistrust other species, were becoming friends. They were learning that different did not mean dangerous. They were learning to be curious instead of afraid. One night after a particularly long meeting, stayed behind to clean up, stayed with her. The quiet cub helped fold blankets in silence. Said finally, "Yes. Before you came, I was scared of humans," admitted. "My parents told me stories, bad stories, about humans in wars, humans who never gave up, humans who could not be stopped." She paused, folding a blanket carefully. "I thought humans were monsters," she continued. "I thought you had no feelings, that you only knew how to fight." "And now?" asked gently. Looked up at her. Her big eyes were soft. "Now I know that humans feel more than anyone," she said. "You feel so much that it makes you strong. It makes you do impossible things. Not because you want to hurt others, but because you want to protect them." She hugged the folded blanket to her chest. "I want to be like that," she said quietly. "I want to be strong because I care, like humans are." Knelt down and pulled into a gentle hug. The cub was warm and soft in her arms. "You already are," whispered. "You are kind and brave and curious. That is all you need to be." They stayed like that for a moment. A human and a cub hugging under a bed on a space station far from either of their homes. It should have been strange, but it felt natural. It felt right. The next morning, something unexpected happened. General came to see. He was not alone. With him were several other adults, representatives from different species. They all had the same look on their faces. Nervous, curious, hopeful. "We have heard about your meetings," the general said. "The children have been talking. They have been sharing what they learned." Tensed, was she in trouble? Had she crossed a line? But the general smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible under his fur, but it was there. "My son used to be afraid of humans," he said. "Now he admires them. He says humans are the bravest species in the galaxy because they fight for love, not glory." He paused. "I want to understand that," he said. "I want to learn what my son has learned." The other adults nodded. They all wanted the same thing. They wanted to understand humans. They wanted to see what the children saw. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she made a decision. "The Council of Cubs meets every night," she said. "But perhaps we need a new council, one for adults, a place where anyone who wants to understand can come and learn." And so the Council of Cubs became something more. It became a movement. Adults joined. Then more adults. The secret meetings under's bed became too small. They moved to a bigger room, then an even bigger one. Within a year, the station had changed. Species that once feared each other now worked together. Children who had been taught to distrust now played together. The walls of suspicion were falling, one question at a time. And at the center of it all was the human caretaker who had heard tiny roars under her bed one quiet night. The woman who had answered every question with patience and kindness. The first human member of the Council of Cubs. She had not planned to change the galaxy. She had just wanted to help 3 curious cubs understand her people. But that small act of kindness had grown into something nobody could have predicted. Years later, when people asked how the great alliance between species began, the answer was always the same. It started with a secret meeting room under a bed. It started with children who were brave enough to be curious. It started with one human who believed that understanding was more powerful than fear. It started with 3 tiny roars in the darkness.